You good? Okay, we're going to call this to order. We apologize for the delay, but we appreciate you all waiting. The first thing is approval of the agenda. We're going to do a slight change on 4A and B. We're going to switch A and B around just for the sake of the public that has been, and the applicant that have been waiting. So if there's a motion to approve the agenda with that change,
I make that
would be
motion.
great. Perfect. Do we have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? That passes. Then we have minutes from May 28th. And those are provided there by Jill. Thank you. Any changes, additions, corrections on those? If not, a motion to approve the minutes from May 28th.
Motion to approve.
Perfect. Second.
Second?
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? That passes. Thanks, Jill. And we'll go to staff presentation from Clara on the Jason Schutzley variance to put an accessory structure in the front yard of a corner lot.
So, you have in front of you tonight a variance request from Jason Schutzley, who, full disclosure, does work for the city of Fergus Falls, but he went through the application process and paid his fee at the office. And now the case is before you for consideration. The address is 1224 Greenfield Avenue, and the zoning of that parcel is R1, and it is mostly surrounded by other R1 properties. 1224 Greenfield Avenue is a corner lot that has almost a triangular shape to it. It's shaped a little bit differently than other lots surrounding it. It has a single-family home and attached garage on it, and has a swimming pool with cement pads surrounding it in the backyard. The proposed project, which is maybe a little difficult to see here, but you do have the same image in your packet, is to build a shed in the yard that is abutting Opperman Lane. Since this is a corner lot, technically this home has 2 front yards, and city code says no accessory structures in a front yard. However, functionally, this is the side of the house. The front of the house is facing Greenfield. And due to the triangular shape of the lot, there's also very little side yard available. So the proposed findings from staff are that there are some special conditions on this site due to the shape of it, where the house is placed, the lack of side yard area, and that the variance does allow for a reasonable use of a person's property in an R1 zone. The proper communications went out to neighbors, including a letter and the notification in the paper. We have received only one comment from the public in an email, and it was from Jean and Dennis Bowman, who are neighbors, and said that they did not have an issue with the placement of the shed and that Jason is a great neighbor. So congratulations to you, Jason. The recommended action, therefore, from staff is to approve the variance and allow this to move forward to the city council for final vote. And we do have the applicant here to answer any questions, but Chair, if you'd like to open it for the public hearing, or if you'd like to ask any questions.
Any questions for Clara? If not, we'll open the public hearing. Jason or anyone else that would like to speak, please step forward and state your name and address. Nope. Okay. We'll close the public hearing and bring it back here if we want to make a motion on that.
I'll move to approve it.
Okay. And do we have a second?
Second.
Any other discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? That passes, and we'll go to city council. Thank you.
Thanks for coming. Yeah. Come back anytime.
We're good entertainment.
We usually have our stuff together.
Yep. We will move on to our second public hearing and go to Clara for action, or for presentation on that.
Yes. Okie dokie. So This variance is to build a new residential property in a residential zone in Fergus Falls. This was a lot that was purchased by Key Property Investments from the city of Fergus Falls. The city acquired the site because the home that was originally on it was dilapidated, and it was remediated by the city, so that house was removed. And this is the best current photo from Google Maps that I could find of the site where there is no house on it. Otherwise, a lot of our photos still have the house. But this lot is on Cherry and Cleveland Avenue, despite the fact that the front of the house has always faced Cherry and the plans for the new house continue to have the house facing Cherry. The address is Cleveland Avenue, but the house has never, at least from recent memory, never faced Cleveland Avenue. This is another corner lot situation where we have 2 front yards. Technically, the yard along Cleveland, oh, I thought I had another picture of it. The yard along Cleveland Avenue, there it is, has it doesn't look super steep in this picture, but when you drive past it, it is a pretty steep incline, so that front yard is difficult to see and use as a front yard. And the reason that we have front yard setback standards is generally for visibility when people are driving, so that they can see cars passing. In this case, the hill sets the house up far enough that, at least in my opinion, it's not a visibility issue. So the request, therefore, is to provide a variance for the front yard that is along Cleveland Avenue, to allow the home that will be built, a 3-bedroom home, to encroach 6 feet into that 30-foot setback, so instead having a 24-foot setback. And there's the proposed house. Again, this would be facing Cherry Avenue, Cleveland on the side. We received no comments on this project proposal, and as of noon today, and the recommended action is to approve the variance. Housing is a pretty dire need in our community, and we have a development company who is willing to come in and put up a structure here that will hopefully house a family. So I think we're happy to support that. Any questions?
Any questions? If not, we'll open the public hearing. Claire will move so the public can walk forward.
Oh, everybody's.
And we will close the public hearing if no one would like to speak on that, and bring it back here. Any questions or emotion?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? That will go to city council. Okay, now I gotta get back to this. Sign ordinance. Do you want to present on that, or how would you like to go forward with that?
I think the hope for tonight was that perhaps there would be some comments that would come in for changes, additions, subtractions to the code. You were given a copy of it a month at the last meeting to try to go over it, but we can certainly just discuss bits and pieces of it as we see fit tonight if we don't have any new comments to incorporate.
You know, I did review it. I pulled up some other sign ordinances that were set as examples on the League of Minnesota Cities website, compared them. I think what you, geez Louise, I don't know what the feedback is. I think what you put together, what we put together, mainly you've put together, obviously, I think I didn't really have any changes. I think it's good.
Cool. All right, so are we feeling like maybe we can send this to the city attorney's office to be written into ordinance format, and then we can start to look at it from that angle before it goes to city council?
I'm comfortable with it. I'm concerned we have a couple people not here that were
True.
pretty vocal on this, but I think we should move it to that, and then we can, at least we have it in that format then to get, if we have to
The
make
process
changes, to get
started.
the process going. That's my gut.
Okay.
Yeah, and if we do that and the city attorney catches anything that's an obvious.
Then we can, right.
Yeah, I just think we got to get
Yeah, just like,
going.
Yep.
get it done.
Yep.
Yeah.
All right, let's do it. Okay.
Did you, Nate, you haven't said anything. Do you have thoughts?
Very comfortable with where we're at with it,
Okay.
so.
Okay. I think
you,
we do
guys.
that. You don't need a motion for that.
I don't think.
Because we're not really
so.
approving anything. We're just moving it on to the next step.
Just to get a new
Okay.
draft of it from the city attorney's office.
Awesome. Thank you for all of your hard work and any other, Jill, I would assume you've been merging documents and thank you.
Happy to do it.
Yeah. So we're gonna move on to staff updates on cannabis. I know there's been city council and then meeting of the whole, probably post your memo.
Yep. I did send out a memo on this, but as the chair has noted, it was before the cannabis committee met again. And the reason I'm providing this update is because one of the zoning discussions did happen with this group, and I feel it's fair to just keep you updated on what the city council is doing with this topic in case you are not at the meetings or following the minutes from those. So the council heard the planning commission's ideas on the zoning ordinance and chose to move ahead with a vote on a B6 zone and above for retail, mezzo, micro licensing, et cetera. And, but that has again failed to get all the way through the council at this point. There are, like we saw even amongst our own group, just differing ideas about, where it's okay for cannabis to be sold. So the discussion at one of the committee of the wholes fairly recently was, can something come back to council considering retail sales in B3? So the city attorney provided language that was B6 and then another set of documents that included B3. The vote that happened at the last city council meeting was on the B6 language. It failed. There was no vote on the B3. It was sent back to the committee. So the committee did meet again after I had written this memo. So I will give you just a verbal update on what it's looking like that conversation is going to be when it does go back in front of the council. They will be bringing forward language to a committee of the whole meeting, and it will be the chief of public safety who's providing this update to the city council. But they are going to consider placement of an interim use permit in the downtown zone, which right now our code does not allow for, but that would be an update that would be made simultaneously with the zoning ordinance update. So an interim use permit would be put into play to allow retail sales downtown should they meet the conditions of the interim use permit. A little bit of background on interim use permits, because I don't know that we've done one here for several years now. I think the last time was with the Shopco lot, maybe, when that was being used as warehousing, which was a change to our code and then an allowable use following that change. Interim use permits can only go for 5 years. There is an annual review of them, so that's really just fairly administrative. Somebody's just looking to make sure that the conditions are continuing to be met annually, but they can run up to 5 years, but not beyond that. They would have to reapply and come back again for a new condition or for a new interim use permit. And unlike a conditional use permit, it does not stay attached to that property. It is really based on the application that is received. So functionally, it is different. So the idea that was discussed with the committee then was to explore the idea of downtown sales through the interim use, and then in higher zones, mezzo micro licensing could be allowed through conditional use. And then I was on the phone with the police chief earlier today, and his idea today was that retail sales be allowed without condition in a B6 zone, so that we do have a place in town that we can point to and say, this is where sales are allowed, point blank. So that is the language that will be getting worked on through the city attorney's office, and will go back in front of the city council, starting with the committee of the whole and then on to a full meeting. So if you have any comments, anything that I can bring back either to the committee or to the city council, I think now would be a fine time to have some of that conversation.
I guess just so everyone knows, B3 is downtown. I think we all know that. One of the concerns that a citizen raised with me was, and I think this was raised at the city council meeting, if it's allowable in a B6, and I'm not taking a position on the cannabis piece of this, I guess, but in general, if we're going to put something in a B6, our B6, and I think we talked about this as a group, has very limited land that may become available for someone to use it. I mean, it's the Walmart, it's the mall, it's, there's just not a lot of places. So to say you can do this without condition in a B6, is the council really saying you can do this when the reality is there's not a lot of B6 out there?
So, and I don't want to say that this is going to be an action that is taken, but part of the conversation that the committee had was whether or not it would be appropriate to look at our full zoning map and see if there are areas that maybe need to be rezoned in a way that makes more sense for the use that they have currently. For instance, on B6 is mostly the western side of town. That's where you're going to find those pockets of B6. You also have a big box retailer that became a school. That was never rezoned. It technically doesn't have to be rezoned because the school is allowed by right to operate in any zone. But if we wanted to take a more comprehensive look at our zoning map and do updates, that could be an option. That would be obviously quite a bit of work and take quite a bit of time, but is maybe not an unreasonable expectation for someone to make of the city.
Other thoughts on this?
What are the conditions why they want to use an interim permit? Like what conditions are they looking for on a downtown business?
Yeah, there wasn't much discussion of the specifics of what would be placed as a condition that I don't think would also be covered in the general ordinance language surrounding the sale of cannabis. For instance, what the state allows is the buffer zones and control over how the hours that a business may operate. Conditions that I've seen placed in other situations specific to maybe conditional use permits would be things like making sure that operations, if there is a scent to them, there's some sort of something put in place to manage the scent so it's not bothering neighbors or noises, things of that nature.
So if the interim permit is good for 5 years, how often do they have to reapply for their cannabis license?
They will be re-upping their licenses through the state annually.
Okay.
So my understanding, and again, this is all speculative because none of this has actually come into play yet, is that the state will annually reach out to the city and ask, is your zoning still accurate for the placement of this business? Can we continue to license them? And then the city would say yes or no.
So is it my understanding, and maybe I misunderstood this, is it not a foregone conclusion that it would be 5 years? It just could be up to 5 years?
I mean, I think not having ever administered an interim use permit, my assumption would be that it would be given with the 5 years
Okay.
as the assumed timeline.
I just think, I mean, and even separate from cannabis, just if we're going to do for any business, to have a business person come in here and say, it's going to be 1 year or it's going to be 2 years. I mean, I don't care if you're opening a dental office or whatever you're doing. If you're going to have a business owner do something or invest in something, I think it'd be important. My personal feedback would be separate from cannabis or anything else. If we're going to go down this path of doing more of these, we need to give these business owners enough time to be able to safely invest in what they're doing here.
That was my initial thought, too.
Yeah.
It's going to be hard to invest
Yeah.
in a business that's dependent
Right.
on a 5-year timeline.
And especially when when Police Chief Kyle was here, he talked about, the building code things, which I think that group is still kind of diving into next, is my understanding. But or to some extent, they've talked about it. If you're going to invest a lot of money into a building, you got to know you can come out of it. And we want to set people up for success for economic development across all of Fergus.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I think that that's a comment that I can make when this conversation moves back to the city council and just say this is where planning commission is coming from. Obviously, they are the decision-making body in this case, but I do think that this group has valuable insight, and I will provide that.
Is there anything, I mean, Nate, anything else that you got or anybody else?
No, I mean, I just feel like the path forward on a conditional use is more appropriate, because even if the business does vacate the building, it doesn't mean that the next shop might come in there. And so, like, how many licenses is the city planning on issuing?
That has not.
We're required to do one.
They only have to
right?
do one.
Right.
They are only required to provide one, and it cannot be if the city, and I'm not saying that this is the direction that any discussions have gone, a municipal one would not count toward that number. So you could have municipal and one other license.
Okay. So, I mean, I just feel we're making a mountain out of a molehill here. It is coming whether you agree with it or not. At the end of the day, a business is a business. Let's treat them as such and give them just cut the red tape and the regulation hurdles that they have to jump through. It's ridiculous, but.
Yeah, my only comment would be that I think we, as the planning commission, had a good discussion about it, and we're really looking a lot at the setback stuff, which I don't think was a focus of when the council ended up reviewing it. But coming, I don't know that my personal opinion has changed. I think we reached a good result there, so would agree.
So are we wanting to communicate to the council that we stand by our original recommendation? Is that what I'm hearing from this group? And that our concern on top of that is with the interim use that we need to give businesses a long enough time frame to be able to be successful? And I mean, I'm just trying to put together what everyone's saying. I'm not saying that's where, it's just like, what does everyone want?
Yeah, is council even looking for us to provide that? My sentiment
I'm
is
kind of
no.
hearing that I don't know if the council is, I'm kind of hearing that leadership might be. Is that an accurate take on things?
I think that would be fair to say that, yes, the question has been asked. What does planning commission
Sure.
have to say
Okay.
at this point?
Yeah, like Brian said, I'm very comfortable with what we ended up recommending the first go round, so.
So do we want to put a motion together, or does someone want to put a motion together to that effect? Maybe with the caveat of, or maybe Clara can just share the point of, like Sarah and I raised, of just in general, if we're going to go to these interim uses, we have to give businesses time to be successful. And that's separate from cannabis in my mind. Just like if we're going down a policy change to start using these,
Yeah.
we have to give them enough time.
Yeah, because in practice, we really don't use them very
No.
often. They're for very specific uses, so this would be changing
Mm-hmm.
that code language to say this also involves, the sale of cannabis in these specific areas.
And they're a unique thing. I was on the planning commission when we did the Pomida building. And it's a unique situation. And I mean, you have some latitude, but I don't know that there's a ton of latitude with them.
Right.
Yeah, and I don't know if giving the business enough time, I mean, I would agree with the sentiment of just treat them like a business, because whether it's
Yeah.
5 years or 10 years, I'd be really hesitant to open anything if there was some sort of a weird time limit on it that I had to come back and,
Yeah.
yeah.
So, yeah. So if someone wants to make a motion, I mean, if we want to say, whatever anyone wants to say, I'm wondering if we formalize it, or if you think that would be helpful. I don't know.
I do think that would be helpful.
Okay.
Yes. And the language is, we still have the language that's there from the last discussion surrounding B3, which did match the recommendations of this group, which was conditional use in the downtown zone. So that could be your recommendation, is we stand by this language. Council, please reconsider.
And I think we had setback stuff in there. I mean, are we just saying we want to say?
Yeah, and I think
Yeah, that was
council
in there.
adopted our
I think-
setbacks.
I think the
250.
council was fine with the setbacks that we eventually
That's
landed
what I
on,
thought,
right?
yeah.
Yep.
So I don't know what is helpful here, I guess.
I would say make a motion to let the council know that you still feel that conditional use permits in the B3 zone for retail sales are appropriate.
And that, I mean, I don't even think we had conditional uses on B6s.
No.
No, it seems like they're going backwards. Like, I'm confused. It's like,
Yeah.
now we're putting on,
Well, and I think
More
that will
restriction-
still be up for debate, at least based on the conversation I had this morning with Kyle.
So, I mean, in all reality, what we're saying is we stand by the whole package of our original.
I think that's what it has to be, because the setback was what I was really concerned with. There were some people here who were vocal, and we landed somewhere. I don't think we can change that. I think it's got to be, and look, we did that without a lot of public interest and a lot of public presence, and the council's had all that public interest and public presence. I think we've been kind of following that, and with all that said, to me, what we landed on was right, so.
Well, I don't think any of us walked out of here that night with that recommendation going, we got everything on the list that we thought we should get for or against. I mean, I feel like it was a compromise.
It very much
Yeah.
was a compromise, and unusual for the way we normally do things. So I think,
Right.
I would make that motion that we were right. No, I'm kidding. I don't know how you frame it, but a motion to reaffirm our prior recommendation.
I'll offer a second.
Okay, any other discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye.
I,
Anyone opposed? Okay.
Okay. Well, that is everything I have for you guys tonight.
Okay. So I guess with the bulk of us here right now, can we look at our July date? Because July is hard for people. And find out how many of us are thinking we are available or not available.
Thanks for coming, guys.
So we would be looking at the 22nd, because we're the 4th.
Yeah.
Is anyone for sure out that day? Not that we would change it, but just so you guys have a sense, trying to figure out a quorum for July.
I am here, so
I'm all
I
right.
did my vacation
Good.
already.
Okay. Gentlemen, are you guys around the 22nd of July?
Yep.
You're here? Okay.
Said 22nd.
Yeah.
Okay.
Cool.
Sorry? What?
Who's meeting?
The golf board, but they're not meeting here. Remember that one time
They
when
gave us,
showed
they
up?
gave up on us. That was the sign ordinance night, I think.
I
Yeah.
thought it was the marijuana subcommittee.
was it
I'll be like, I'll go. It's an open meeting, right?
Are we technically adjourned? Or? No.
Not quite yet.
Not yet. Okay.
Nate,
Oh, we're
can you
not.
do the
I thought
22nd?
we were.
Yep.
You can do the 22nd. So you can get all four of us on the 22nd.
Great. Let's do it.
Okay.
27.
Do we have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
We're out of here. Thank you, everybody. Thanks for coming, Nate.
Yeah. my
Sorry
fault.
we ruined your
I was
evening.
power
No.
texting you.
It's been